So what if I told you about this love story, like the Portuguese Romeo and Juliet, but death wasn't the end? What if it got even crazier after that?
Right. That's exactly why this story sticks around. It pushes all these boundaries like love, power, and how history kind of morphs into legend.
Okay, I'm hooked already. For this deep dive, we're getting into the pretty wild history of Portugal's Infante Pedro and Ines de Castro, who was from Castile.
Yeah, and we've got some great sources lined up. We have the historical account, the timelines and stuff, but also details on this amazing painting. And then we dig into the legends surrounding them.
So our mission today is basically to sort through it all, get the real history, or as real as we can tell, look at how art interpreted it, and then tackle that really shocking legend.
Because it's way more than just forbidden love, isn't it? It's politics, brutal betrayal, like serious revenge, and yeah, a coronation that's unlike anything else.
Okay, let's set the scene. Where and when are we?
We're in Portugal, mid-14th century. The main players are Ines de Castro. She came from Castile, and Dom Pedro, the heir to the Portuguese throne. He's King Afonso V's son. Ines actually arrived as a lady-in-waiting for Pedro's wife, Constanza Manuel.
Pedro's marriage to Constanza, that was standard royal stuff, right? Political alliance, not love.
Exactly. All about stability, dynasty. But the sources are pretty clear. Pedro is immediately captivated by Ines. Just boom, fell head over heels. And she felt the same way. So they started this relationship, secretly, of course.
A secret affair. But then things changed, didn't they? Constanza died young.
Yeah, she died not too long after giving birth to their son, Fernando. He was the legitimate heir, no question about that.
Okay, so Constanza's death leaves Pedro a widower, technically free.
Right. And he wanted to be with Ines openly. He was apparently completely over the whole political marriage thing his father kept pushing. Some sources even suggest he might have secretly married Ines already, maybe even while Constanza was alive, or right after she died.
And that is where things get really complicated for his father, King Afonso, and the court. Why was Pedro wanting to marry Ines, or just be with her openly, such a massive problem?
Oh, several big reasons, according to the sources we looked at. First off, Ines wasn't just some random noblewoman. Her family, the Castros, were seriously powerful back in Castile. Her sister was actually the mistress of the Castilian king.
Okay, so instant alarm bells about Castilian influence right there.
Exactly. The Portuguese nobles were already wary of Castile, and then Ines's brothers, who were politically active and had been exiled from Castile, well, Pedro started giving them important jobs in Portugal.
So it looked like he was bringing in his Castilian in-laws, basically. Not going to sit well with the local lords.
Not at all. And then you have the children. Pedro and Ines had kids together, 4 of them, though one died young. To the court, these kids were illegitimate. And the biggest fear, the absolute nightmare scenario outlined in the chronicles, was that Ines's sons might eventually challenge Fernando, the legitimate heir.
Right, which could mean civil war, or even Castile making a claim on Portugal through Ines's family. Huge stakes.
Incredibly high. King Afonso and his council tried everything to get Pedro to marry some other princess for political reasons, but Pedro just dug his heels in. No way. He was completely devoted to Ines.
And that refusal, that complete defiance, that's what sealed her fate, wasn't it?
Pretty much. The royal council just saw no other way out. They felt they couldn't control Pedro. They feared the political fallout, and they basically told the king she has to go. Permanently.
How did the king react? Was it a tough decision for him?
Well, the sources suggest his advisors convinced him it was necessary. A difficult decision, they called it, but for the good of the kingdom. Stability above all else.
So the plan was made. And then one day in 1355, Pedro's away, maybe hunting.
Yeah, Pedro's out of the picture.
Yeah.
King Afonso goes to the palace in Coimbra where Ines is living with her children.
In this moment, this is where the legend and the art really connect, right? The story goes that Ines threw herself at the king's feet.
Exactly. The legend says she brought her children, pleaded with him, begged for mercy, appealed to him as a grandfather. Just this incredibly desperate, emotional scene.
And that's the moment the artist Karl Brullov picked for his painting, The Death of Ines de Castro from 1834.
Yeah, our source in the painting really highlights that. Brullov was working in that, academic style, very dramatic, lots of expressive body language, what they call speaking gestures.
You really see it in the painting description. Rosa's the focus, lit dramatically, her face all anguish and pleading. She's kind of twisting away. The kids are grabbing onto her. It's intense. And then the king is sort of standing there, calm, maybe looking away while the guards are just waiting. cold.
It's interesting he chose the plea, not the actual killing, which is much more visually dramatic in a way. The source says he painted it super fast, like 17 days, and it was even shown with his huge famous painting, The Last Day of Pompeii. So he clearly thought it was a powerful subject.
But the painting shows the plea. The legend tells of the plea. Yet the history books say the king didn't relent.
No. Despite whatever hesitation he might have felt, or that the legend gives him, the council's decision stood. Ines was killed, January 7th, 1355.
How exactly? Do the sources agree?
Actually, there's a bit of variation there. Some say she was beheaded, others say stabbed by 3 assassins. Even her age isn't perfectly consistent, maybe around 30, maybe 34. It shows how, even primary sources can differ slightly centuries later.
But the result was the same. She was dead. And Pedro, when he found out.
Utter devastation, consumed by grief, and then just volcanic rage.
And he immediately did exactly what his father feared most, didn't he? He rebelled.
Yep. Started the civil war they'd tried so hard to avoid. He went right after his own father, seeking vengeance for Ines.
How long did that last?
About 2 years, apparently. Caused a lot of disruption. Eventually, they reconciled, father and son. Reports say the people were just fed up with the fighting, the taxes, all of it, and pushed for peace.
But the peace didn't last long for the king.
No. King Afonso I died soon after the reconciliation. And in 1357, Pedro became King Pedro I. And he got a nickname that really fits, didn't he? The Justiciar.
Or the Cruel, depending on who you ask, maybe. Because his justice was something else. Especially for the guys he blamed for Ines' murder.
Oh, yeah. The advisors, Pere Coelho, Alvaro Gonçalves, and Diogo Lopes Pacheco. Pacheco escaped, but Coelho and Gonçalves fled to Castile. Pedro wasn't having it.
He got them back, though.
Managed to get them extradited, apparently tricked the Castilian king, promised them mercy or something.
And then the legend about their execution is horrifying.
It's incredibly gruesome. The story goes that Pedro personally oversaw it and had their hearts ripped out. Coelho's from the front, Gonçalves from the back, supposedly to mirror his own broken heart. Just chillin'.
Whether it happened exactly like that or not, it sends a message. But even that isn't the wildest part of this story, is it?
Not even close. Now we get to the part that everyone remembers, the thing that makes this story absolutely legendary, the corpse coronation.
Right. This is supposed to have happened years later.
Yeah, the legend puts it in 1361. That's 6 years after Ines was murdered. 6 years she had been in her tomb.
And Pedro ordered her body exhumed.
Exhumed. Dug up. And then, according to this legend, he had her corpse dressed in royal robes, sat her on a throne next to him, and put a crown on her head, declared her Queen of Portugal.
Wow. And the court. They had to participate.
This is the really grim part. The legend says the courtiers were forced to file past the throne, kiss her decaying hand, and swear loyalty to their dead queen.
Unbelievable. I mean, one source mentioned they probably would prefer another civil war to doing that.
You can imagine. Just the sheer horror of it. But, okay, here's where we need to be careful, like our sources point out. This corpse coronation story. It's an incredibly strong myth, especially in Portugal, but
there's no actual proof it happened.
Exactly. The solid contemporary historical records, they just don't mention it. So it's overwhelmingly considered a legend, a very powerful one, but still legend.
So why did the legend stick? What could be behind it?
Well, it definitely captures the intensity of Pedro's feelings, whether that's grief, obsession, maybe even madness. Some historians speculate maybe there was some kind of ceremony, much less gruesome, possibly to legitimize her status so she could be buried in the royal monastery.
Okay, because she was moved, right, regardless of the coronation legend.
Yes, absolutely. In 1361, her body was transferred from Coimbra, and she was given this incredibly grand burial in a magnificent tomb at the Alcobaça Monastery. A burial fit for a queen, essentially.
And Pedro had plans for his own burial, too, connected to hers.
Very specific plans. When he died in 1367, his will stated he must be buried right opposite Ines in Alcobaça.
And they are, aren't they? Their tombs face each other.
They do, across the transept. The idea, as the sources explain Pedro's intent, was that when Judgment Day came and the dead rose, the very first person each of them would see is the other.
Wow. And the inscription on the tombs, until the end of the world.
Até o fim do mundo. A final dramatic statement about their connection, enduring beyond death.
It's just, what a story. From the forbidden love, the political murder, the brutal revenge, to this utterly bizarre, maybe legendary, maybe not, act of devotion or madness. It's no wonder it inspired so much art, opera, film. Brullov's painting capturing just one moment of it.
Absolutely.
So bringing it all together, why does this story from nearly 700 years ago still grab us like this? What's the takeaway?
I think it's that mix, isn't it? You've got the passion, the love story against all odds, then the cold, hard reality of politics and power just crushing personal lives, and then this deep dive into grief, revenge, maybe obsession, the dark places that loss can take you.
And the legend itself, the corpse coronation, even if it didn't happen, the fact that the story exists tells us something, right? About how people saw Pedro, about the power of their story in Portugal's history and memory.
Exactly. The legend becomes almost as important as the history in a way. It speaks volumes about the impact they had, the emotions they stirred up, that such an extreme story could take root and endure.
It really is unforgettable. The whole arc, secret romance, brutal murder, bloody vengeance, and a dead queen on a throne. So maybe a final thought. Thinking about that description until the end of the world. Perhaps it's the legend, even more than the bare historical facts, that truly keeps their story alive, ensuring their passion and the violence surrounding it echoes right up until that final moment they hope to meet again.